Hey everybody, good morning. It's Friday, January 20th. We have a special guest calling in from Skype from Virginia, Mr. Dion Hinchcliffe, who's the EVP of Strategy for the Dachis Group. Dion?
Hi, Tim.
So, lots of big news kind of coming up. We just had a Google announce 90 million or some members. Stuff's moving really fast in the mobile space. CITE Conference is coming out on the 4th and 6th. What's hot in your radar for 2012?
So there's a couple of things that people are in general familiar with the things that are happening with mobile.
Mm-hmm.
iPads and tablets, obviously very hot in the enterprise right now.
Mm-hmm.
But smart devices in general are just moving into the enterprise in a big way. And it's disruptive in that they're based on platforms that really didn't come from the enterprise world. So you look at iOS and Android. These are things that IT departments don't have a lot of experience with. Yet people are bringing these devices to work, using the app stores, putting the company data in them. And that's something that CIOs are really focused on this year to figure out what their next generation mobility strategy is. So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
And another very hot topic, of course, is enterprise social media.
Mm-hmm.
Most people now use Facebook. They just predicted they're going to hit 1 billion users here relatively soon. That's amazing, and it's changing how we communicate. It's changing how we communicate in the workplace, and organizations are trying to get their arms around how that's going to impact corporate communications.
Yeah, so it's like where do companies start and how they start to implement this new wave? Like, let's talk about cloud.
Yeah, well, cloud is interesting because companies are very concerned about the control they have over their information, right? Workers can come and go, but if you lose your data, you're out of business. You don't
Yeah,
have control over it,
yeah.
and that's the real concern. Is that there is estimates now that most small and medium-sized businesses will move most or all of their IT to the cloud in the next few years. But large enterprises are trying to struggle with this because just like mobile apps and social media, people are bringing it to work because the tools often work better, they're newer, they're more up to date. But companies are then very concerned about, am I, complying with laws, industry regulations, and
Hmm.
all my other obligations as a company? How do I control that? And then longer term, we look at companies moving their very expensive custom infrastructure into much more commodity resources outside the organization that are much cheaper, but the control issues come back again.
Hmm. What are you seeing interesting in tablets coming into the workplace now in kind of the Android camp versus the iPad camp?
CompuWare just released a survey that said 96% of all tablet app activations in the enterprise were iPads.
Hmm.
So Android tablets are just not happening.
Yeah, yeah.
That said, there's still tens of thousands of Android tablets moving into the enterprise, but that's compared to millions on the iPad side. So right now it's an iPad story.
Hmm.
I think that will begin to change. We're now seeing some very credible offerings. The new versions of Android designed for tablets are actually quite good. I was using them at the airport last night, and they've really gotten very close, I think, now to the iPad user experience. So I think that will change.
Uh, what about companies leveraging new types of social apps? We've seen a couple companies go public this year in the space, like Jive. What's your perspective on 2012 and social in the enterprise?
So I think it'll be a big year. I track the adoption stats pretty closely. In the last couple of years, we see about half of all large organizations have enterprise social software, but they're not really using it strategically. And
Yeah.
other organizations like Forrester and Gartner actually think actual use is considerably lower.
Hmm.
We really see is socials used quite a bit, like Facebook communication for getting, reaching out to your contacts and that are no longer in your address book. We're seeing these consumer channels as being a major source of use. That said, we expect that if you look at Prescient's new data, it looks like we're going to see significant additions in 2012 for enterprise social media.
What are you seeing in the adoption, I guess, of the intelligence? I mean, stuff's moving so quick, and how do people actually grab onto a strategy and implement it before it changes and something's new? I guess how do people
Let's
keep up?
Exactly. Well, this is what Clay Shirky says. He has that great quote, though, that it's not information overload; it's filter failure.
Hmm.
We want all this information, all the intelligence that we're seeing accumulating in social channels. There's so much wonderful information out there. The great examples, for example, using Twitter to coordinate disasters, right? Like the San Diego fires or the tsunami in the east.
Hmm.
Those
Japan.
social media generates very valuable, often life-critical information if we know how to tap into it. But there's just so much information; it's a fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at one of the hot topics these days is something called big data that allows you to process these vast volumes of information, pull out the parts that are relevant for your business, and then be able to get that information in the hands of decision makers in time to do something about it.
And it's really looking at the whole universe of data that's out there, from YouTube videos to deep mining Twitter feeds, right?
Yes.
To all the data within the company. What are you going to be? What are the hot topics you're going to be speaking to at the CITE conference?
So we're really going to get into this topic of consumerization. Mm-hmm. This is taking all these trends that we're seeing, and that we've seen over the last 10 years that the amount of control that the CIO has over IT has gone from about 10% that they don't have control over to now almost a third of IT is no longer under the CIO's purview.
Wow.
So this is the line of business and people bringing in smartphones with their own IT. Just like we brought in, computers, desktops in the 1980s, people would actually use their own money to buy their own PC because they could control them and get work done faster. And that's what we see, the same trend. People know how to use these. They know that there's an app for that. They have a business problem. They can quickly get that IT in and onto that business problem, right? As opposed to the months it takes for the regular procurement process.
That's pretty exciting because there's all these little niches that get filled in really quick with startups that have vertical little small apps that solve problems.
Right, yeah, exactly. They offer just a single feature, but you can get that app and you can throw it on a business problem, and people now know that that's possible and they expect it. So IT departments are really going to be pushed to deliver IT faster, or they're going to get cut right out of the loop. And we're seeing both of that happen. We're seeing IT departments are trying to get ahead of this, trying to deal with service delivery on mobile devices through social media in the cloud, and then we also see that businesses are just doing it on their own. I should say, workers are just saying, "I can't wait. I have a job to get done. I can do it really well." I think there's a lot of challenges like security and governance that have to be dealt with.
What's next for you? We have South by Southwest coming up, CITE's coming up. Do you have any interesting conferences you're going to be attending, speaking to?
So as part of the Dachis Group, we have something called the Social Business Summit. Around the world, right? We're going to be in Shanghai, Berlin, London, Rio, Austin, New York, talking about how social is going to strategically change how companies how they market, how they support their customers, how they develop their products. It's going to be an exciting conference series, so that we'll be doing that around the world. And I have some other ones, the Enterprise 2.0 Summit. I'm providing those in Keynote in Paris next month, so those should be really exciting.
So I see it's at the dachisgroup.com. That's DACHISGROUP.com.
Exactly.
And you're on Twitter. I've been checking out your feed and gleaning a bunch of really interesting links.
I do a lot of link bait on my Twitter.
There you go. It's so that's D Hinchcliffe, DHINCHCLIFFE on Twitter. Well, great. Look forward to catching you on the internets from now until the event, and really excited to hear more.
Fantastic. Great talking with you, Tim.
Hey, thanks so much for your time.
Take care.